In any business, word of mouth can kill or build your reputation and your bottom line. Over the years, we've studied client experience and what it takes to keep customers in a cash-based PT setting. Today, we're doing a deep dive into our client experience at Move Athletics and how we've chiseled it into what it is today.
Before we dive into the client experience though, we have to know what the life cycle or the stages a client goes through with us at Move, or really in any business. So to really simplify it, there is somebody who becomes curious about us and is aware of us through our marketing, right? And then they become problem aware and think, maybe they can help me solve my problem. Hopefully they express some interest and they want to know more, where they'll set up a discovery call. Then through that discovery call, we can learn about what their problem is. They can learn about our solution, and then hopefully at the end of the discovery call, they think, I think you can solve my problem. And then they're going to schedule an evaluation. And then from there, they come in for that evaluation. At the end of the evaluation, if you're able to demonstrate expertise and mastery and explain things in a way that makes sense, and they trust you to solve their problem, then they will commit to doing this with you in the form of a plan of care. From there, you have an opportunity to make them a lifer, where they might go on to your membership if you offer that. And if you don't offer that, here's your sign. And that also tells you that you've done a really good job at providing the value and the expertise in solving their problem.
Yeah, we read Never Lose a Customer Again. We endearingly call that in lockup because we referred to it so much last year. And we restructured our entire client experience last year. Basically, what it comes down to is it's anticipating the emotional journey that the client is going on with you and providing exceptional services with exceptional results that got them curious in your thing in the first place. And I think that's the key, because even if you develop a personal experience by anticipating the emotional journey and you provide exceptional services along the way, at the end of the day, and we're going to keep hammering this home, if they don't get the end result, was it worth it?
Yeah, if you don't get the result, it doesn't matter. Now, just a little bit more about the emotional journey. It's not just anticipating the emotional journey, it's anticipating the emotional journey and then also building in touch points and ways to help them feel the way that we want them to feel, right? Like if you think that they might have some buyer's remorse, which is a normal thing of like, did I make the right decision? Then we need to make sure that we're giving them those touch points at the right times to help reinforce the emotions that we want them to have, which is confidence and certainty and excitement over working with us.
Yeah, and so what we're planning on doing is next week we're going to dig more into the actual emotional journey and how we parse that out step by step and what we think the heaviest hitting points are. But what it all comes down to is the outcome.
Yeah, because if you don't get the outcome, all the things you did to build the experience don't matter at all, because the outcome is what they're coming to you for. People know right away whether you're confident or not. They can tell by your body language, right? Are you making yourself small? Are you using uncertain tonality? Are you making statements that sound like a question instead of making a statement? Are you using a tonality that's like, maybe it's probably this, if you say something with a little uncertainty, but you have a confident tone, that changes the outcome entirely. If I'm like, seems like what's going on is X, Y, and Z versus, it seems like what is going on is X, Y, and Z. It's very different. So the way that you're talking to people, the way that you're holding yourself, the way that you move and you touch patients is all very important. If you're very intentional and confidently palpating and moving things versus just poking around a little bit and fiddling with people's limbs and not really knowing what's going on, like, hey, Yeah, so I think we're gonna all right, so how does this feel? Is it okay there? And if I touch here, does that hurt? Like, okay, what about does this hurt? How does this feel? Versus, hey, I'm gonna hold you here, we come up here, how does that feel? And then if I do this, how does that feel? Does that bother you at all? Is it tight or tender through here? It's the same thing, but the image that you're portraying is very, very different.
Yeah, people can also lose confidence really quickly. Like they'll do a strong evaluation, say they know what's going on, and then the patient asks a question that throws them off and they're not ready for it. And suddenly you just see the demeanor change and they're like, oh, well, it could also be that. And then suddenly you've lost their confidence and they're not going to buy into what you're saying. So clients may not know PT, but they're not stupid. They can pick up if someone is confident and an expert versus if someone is uncertain and doubtful.
We've hired people in the past that were uncertain of their skills. And even though they said that they were confident, we had to consistently give them feedback that when they're talking to patients, they sound and they look very, very uncertain. And then that led their patients to not having trust in them as a therapist, as an expert to solve their problem. The patients stop taking the advice. They start doubting that you're going to be able to get them the result, and then they don't make any progress, like zero progress.
Whether the therapist actually knew what was going on or not. So here's some data for that PT. They had a lot of turnover in their patient volume. They had extremely low percentages of people who converted from evaluation to sticking around throughout an entire plan of care. Not a single person joined their membership. So not only did they have low retention, they had zero. And then even had a number of people leaving a pre-existing membership.
Yeah.
So you can have a great relationship with a patient personally, but if they don't trust you professionally or think you know what you're talking about, they're not going to stick around. And that's what we saw for this PT.
Yeah, that's a great point. Is that they were literally giving people that were on a membership for quite some time, and then those people quickly canceled their membership because they didn't have confidence in that PT. And you might think, well, it's because they had the relationship with somebody else and they got passed over and it was a poor experience with the switching, and that's not it. Because I've taken over caseloads from other people that had long-standing memberships that I didn't work with at all. And since I'm able to, and Caitlin as well, since we are able to be experts and be perceived as experts and build the confidence in us very quickly, they all stick around for a long period of time. It's that lack of confidence that makes a big difference. So some service industry advice here, some physical therapy service, really just any service industry advice. Level up your skills and know what you're doing. If you're charging money for your services, you need to be competent. I'm just assuming that if you want to be a cash PT, you know that you need to be exceptional as a physical therapist. You can't be average, you can't be slightly above average, you need to be exceptional.
So, and this is the other thing, and I'm speaking to business owners directly right now. Your clients are not going to give you honest, direct feedback about whether your new person sucks or not. Like, we've asked for the feedback. Yeah. We've had direct conversations, and it's not until you catch all the data, you figure out what's going on, and then maybe after they're gone or you've done some significant improvement to change things, that then they're going to be working with you in a session and be like, oh yeah, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I'm seeing you now because this, and this. And then that's where they feel like it's acceptable to share their honest opinion because, again, they are not going to tell you. No matter how many surveys you send out, no matter even if you're doing a check-in, quality control check-in call to say, hey, how's your experience going? Because people like to be nice. And if they don't have something nice to say, they're just going to avoid answering the phone, or they're just going to say, oh, yeah, it's fine. And go from there.
They're going to blow smoke up your ass.
Yeah.
And this isn't hypothetical. These are our experiences.
Yeah.
And they're not always, even in that situation, they're not always super forthcoming with it. They're just they might say things along the lines of, oh man, I feel like I'm getting so much out of these sessions with you, implying that they weren't getting as much out of the sessions previously.
Yeah.
And then, you just build their confidence up, but you have to know that they're not gonna share that with you as much as you try to get it out of them.
Yeah. Looking at the outcomes again and leveling up, like Roger said, your skill set, looping all the way back around to a few minutes ago, even if you kind of know what you're doing or you get them mostly better, like getting your patients 80 to 90%, you're still not getting the outcome that that person wanted and paid for.
Yeah.
They want to get all the way better.
Yeah, and if you don't get the result, they're not blown away, right? And that's what you need. You need people to come and see you and be like, holy shit, this is amazing. Why doesn't everybody else know this? Like, our clients, this is weird, they often use the word voodoo. It's like the same word that we hear from everybody, like, this is like voodoo. Why has nobody else figured this out? Because we've blown them away and they become a raving fan. And that's where we get the word of mouth referrals. And that's where people are returning customers if they, for financial reasons or whatever, end a membership at some point in time, and then they come back, right?
By the way, people think it's all voodoo and they use that terminology because we do things differently here. So if you're just copying what you see somebody else doing in your clinic, or you're just imitating what you see these other people doing on Instagram, that's not the answer. Don't be afraid to do something different and to go learn and make it make sense for yourself separately.
Yeah.
Just sidebar.
Yeah, so that's what you want, right? You want to not only have them get the result, but you want raving fans. You want people to be blown away and to just be absolutely flabbergasted, good word there, right? About your skill set, your ability to communicate, your ability to make it make sense for them and to get them beyond the result that they wanted to. We've seen PTs have to go out and constantly get a crazy number of new leads and new patients because they're always losing patients faster than they're bringing them in, right? They'll have 3 coming in and 5, 6, 7 going out, weekly, monthly, whatever it is. It's skewed the wrong way. And if you want a stable business, you want a business that isn't stressful, you need recurring revenue. You need people that stick around, that love you, and that's going to make it so you don't need so many damn new patients.
Yeah, because a lot of the times the high number that's leaving is just somebody who came in for an evaluation who thought what you're doing is just like what everybody else is doing, or they're not bought in, or they thought you weren't confident, and so they just didn't stick around in general. And then there's also the people that have finished their plans of care and then they're saying bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So that's funny. That's what we say at the house. I don't know how it started.
It's her. Essentially, she goes, bye. So that's just sidebar.
So I'll tell you a story. In my practice, when I first started and I first opened,
Other practice.
Oh, yeah. In my first practice that I started in Texas, I had not a great client experience initially because I was just learning what I was doing. There was no standardization. I didn't have repeatable things or, I just didn't have a process to make sure that each person went through each of these steps to ensure what's the word I'm looking for? An identical client experience from end to end.
Yeah.
And so that was the first problem. Another problem was people were getting mostly better. Like most of my patients were getting better. Some were 80 to 90%, but a few I really struggled with. And, the longer I was in business, the first 2 of my problems got better. But my skill set as a whole, the outcome that people were getting when they came to see me was a linchpin and was going to be the thing that was going to hold my business back if I didn't do something about it. And so it's not that you don't know anything. It's not like this, polar extreme of, oh, you're a really shitty therapist, you know nothing, versus, oh, I know what's going on. There's a lot of gray area, and I think that's where most people fall. If you kind of know what you're doing, or if you know what you're doing, but you have a number of patients that you either don't know that you're missing things, or that people aren't getting all the way better, or that they just have these recurrent injuries, or people stop coming in, those are all maybe some signs that there's some gaps in your game that you should be fixing, because people should be having stellar experiences.
And that's a great point. You have to remember that people are a lot more likely to talk about a bad experience, to share bad experiences, to leave reviews on bad experiences versus great experiences. How many times people go out to a restaurant and their food wasn't that great and they get right on Google and they leave a review like, oh man, usually so good, but this time it sucked, or whatever. Or you go out to a restaurant and the service was terrible, it was really busy, the waiter, waitress, the server took forever to come over to your table, the food was cold, and then somebody asks you about how the restaurant is, and that is, or you don't even, nobody asks you. You just go, oh man, I went to this restaurant and I thought it was gonna be so good, but it took so long, the food was cold, blah, and you tell a bunch of people about it. But how many times you go out to a restaurant and you're like, oh my God, it was so great, the waiter, the waitress, the server was right there, the food was great, this was good, the whole timing of everything was perfect. No, you don't, you're just like, oh, that was a good meal, awesome. And you keep it to yourself. And it all comes down to the outcome that they get. And the outcome, the experience, has to start with clinical reason and clinical skill set. So here's what you can do and how you can fix it if you have similar issues with clinical reasoning or progression of someone's rehab, or just not getting consistently exceptional outcomes. Schedule a call with me, do our 3-week mini course, and sign up for our next cohort for the Performance Rehab Authority Certification that starts on June 10th.
Yeah, our course focuses on teaching you how to take someone from their sickest to their strongest. It teaches you how to figure out why no other provider has been able to help this person. It teaches you how to evaluate someone, get them out of pain as quickly as possible, and load appropriately to prevent whatever injury from recurring.
If you want the free course, it's right in the description below. Click the link. If you don't want to click it, what's the URL?
moveathleticseducation.com/free. And if you want to schedule a discovery call, just head to our Instagram.
Shoot me a DM or her DM, and we'll make it happen.
See you on the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe.